if there's a place you want to be, get to that place and figure out how to make it work, because you can't live where you're unhappy hoping to someday get where you want to be. Just get there. It'll all work out.
Have you ever thought about reinventing yourself, Mama? It can be easy to feel lost and stuck in motherhood and feel like there's no time for the things that bring you joy. If you are ready to follow your passion and find ways to reinvent yourself, you are going to love this episode of the Soul Care Mom podcast. My guest, Melissa Holman, a mother, grandmother, holistic life coach, and registered aromatherapist, shares how she went back to school later in life to follow her passion and reinvent herself, and how you can too. Hi there, Soulful Mama. Welcome to the Soul Care Mom podcast. I'm Catherine Wilde of soulcaremom.com. I'm a mom of 3 amazing kids, a soul care mom coach, and a yoga and meditation teacher. I've helped hundreds of women, and I'm here to help you feel calm and find your unshakable confidence as a mom. If you're ready to stop living in survival mode and you're ready to drop the mom guilt and overwhelm, this podcast is for you. Think of this as a lunch date with a girlfriend. Grab a cup of tea and get cozy. It's time to get honest and vulnerable and shift the traditional mindset around motherhood. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know when new episodes are released. Get ready to grow and feel empowered as a mom. I'm here for you, Mama. Let's get started.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Catherine. It's great to be here.
I am so excited to talk with you because not only are you a mom, you're a grandmother, you are an entrepreneur. I'm excited to dive into all of the things with you. You shared a little bit about your journey with me.
Yeah.
You adopted your husband's children and you were on the homeschooling journey, and you went back to school yourself to start your own business, and you've become a life coach and a registered aromatherapist. Will you share a little bit about that journey with us?
Oh, my word. How much time do we have? So I got married at 21. I was in the military and I was a security police officer, and I met my husband that way. At the time I met my husband, I was working as an armorer, which is the person who takes care of all the weapons and issues weapons and takes them back in at the end of shifts. And we joke about it because he liked the smell of my perfume, which was actually gun oil. So anyway, but that's how I met my husband, was in the military. We were both security police officers, but he already had 2 children. And he was divorced, so he was a single father. Huge props going out to all the single dads out there, because, wow, that's all I can say. But I never, growing up as a kid, I never had kids on my radar. That wasn't something that was ever like a dream of mine. Like, I know little girls are playing dolls and stuff. I didn't do that. I was playing outside. I didn't play with dolls. So kids were not on my radar. But this guy that I had met that I liked brought his son in one day to the armory window, and this little 7-year-old boy, beaming smile, bushy blonde hair, wearing a Daniel Boone fringed coat and cowboy boots, sidled up to the window and said, "Hi, I'm Dan." And I lost it. I fell in love with that little boy. I started babysitting him because I just really enjoyed being around him. He was the first kid that I actually liked. Most kids kind of annoyed me at that point, but I liked this guy. Dan, I liked the little guy. And we would go to the mall, we would hang out. And at one point, I would say it was like 2 months after meeting him, he looked at me and he said, "Can I call you Mom?" And I was like, "Sure." But with that comes some responsibilities that I will have. And that means like, if you mouth off, I get to punish you, things like that. So he started calling me mom. I never had that type of a relationship with a kid before. And it was just so precious. And then so I went on my first date with my husband in October. By May, we were engaged. And in June, we got married. It was that fast.
Wow.
Partly because this is the guy. And I went, well, then I'm not going to fool around. I'm not going to mess around. We're going to get this done. But also it was right at the beginning of the Gulf War. And the possibility of one or both of us being deployed was very high. So we didn't want to chance being deployed and not being married. So we went ahead, we got married in June. And so that was the beginning. Fast forward just a few months, we got transferred to a new base. But before we got transferred, our daughter, he had shared custody with his ex-wife. He had his son, she kept the daughter. She came to visit before we moved. While she was visiting, she revealed to me some things that little 6-year-old girls should not know. And I went to my husband and I said, we cannot let her go back. We cannot let her go back into the care of her birth mother because these are the things that have happened. And he lost it because that was his little girl. So we informed the birth mother, his ex-wife. I said that we're not sending her back and this is why. And then we moved. We had been in our new duty station for several months, and our son called from school and said, I think Sarah's been taken. She's not on the playground. I can't find her. He went to the principal, went to the teacher. The teacher didn't believe him, said, I want to go talk to the principal, went to the principal. And then, of course, they started investigating. And in fact, our daughter was gone. She'd been taken from the playground. We didn't know. This is before cell phones. This is before the internet. So we knew that his ex-wife lived in Ohio. We knew how long it would take for her to drive back to Ohio, and we waited. About 2 a.m., we called her, and she picked up the phone, and he asked her, do you have our daughter? Yes, I have her. And he said, what are you doing? And she hung up. So we went through a huge, long battle with that. But during that time, my husband went to court and got full custody. When we finally found out where she was, he drove from Arkansas to Ohio and didn't stop. When he got to the police station, they went and got her. Wow. After all of that, after counseling, after dealing with all of that, we went back to court and I adopted them. So they are technically mine. During that time, we had 2 more kids. And so we have 4 kids total. Our youngest son is almost 30. So that tells you how long ago this was. We had learned about homeschooling while we were living in Arkansas. Some friends of ours were homeschooling. I had never heard of it, didn't really know what it was. This is before it became a big movement. And I was like, we should look into that. That sounds really interesting. And then we moved. In this year, the year following that discovery of homeschooling, our oldest son went to 4 different schools in 1 year, because of being military and moving a lot. And it started to really seep in that homeschooling might be a really good option for our family if we're going to be moving like this a lot. And then our daughter came home from school with ulcers and headaches and digestive problems and migraines, and her grades were dropping. And I said, that's it. And we pulled her out in the 8th grade and started homeschooling her. And then I homeschooled the younger 2 all the way through pre-K to graduation. And then when my youngest son was a senior in high school, I was visiting my chiropractor, and the young lady at the front desk was getting ready to have her first baby. So I thought this was very interesting. My youngest was getting ready to fly, And she was getting ready to have her first. And I said, well, who's going to take your place? And she goes, you should take my place. And I went, oh, wait, I'm still homeschooling my kids. I'm still in total mom mode. I'm not ready to work. And I went home and told my husband, and he's like, you would be perfect for that job. And I went, wait, no, I can't. Are you crazy? I'm still schooling my kids. And my youngest son looks at me and he goes, Mom, just give me my schedule each week. That's all I need. Just give me my schedule. Go get the job. I was like, but I haven't worked in over 20 years. What do I have to bring to the workforce? I don't even know. And my husband, God bless him, he's so supportive. And he looks at me and he goes, just take a deep breath. Sit down. And you've done so much over the last 20 years. Just write it all down. So I did. I sat down and I started writing it down, managed the finances, learned a bunch of different skills like canning and baking and cooking and quilting and crafting and all these things. I served as a volunteer in the Boy Scouts, from working on the committee all the way to being the leader. I ran a homeschool co-op where I was the leader of the co-op, the teacher in the co-op. I was in a bagpipe band. So I had music organization skills as well. And we started a homeschool bagpipe band. So I sat down and I looked at all the things that I had accomplished. And I was like, okay, I do have something to bring to the world. I don't know if it translates to working at a chiropractic office, but I do have something. So then I sat down and I started, how do you write a resume? My gosh, it's been over 20 years. How do you write a resume? I don't even know. Fortunately, at this point, we did have the internet. So I Googled, how do you write a resume? And so I looked at it and I was like, oh, I can do this. I can put down like where I graduated from high school and the little bit of college that I had. Okay, I can do that. Oh, military experience. I can do that. What are my skills? I can organize, I can type, I can do all these things. And I was like, oh, I actually have a resume. This is kind of cool. So, oh my gosh, heart in my throat, sweating, I didn't even have clothes to wear to work. So like I got the nicest thing that I had and it still looked like a day at the beach. Because I was in mom mode, right? I was still in I call it my mom bubble. I was still in my mom bubble. Everything had to do with my kids at this point. And so I put on the nicest clothes that I had, walk in shaking, hand my resume to my chiropractor, whom I loved. I mean, he was just an amazing man. And he sits down and he starts just asking questions, not even about working or anything, just like, hi, how are you doing today? More like I was going in for a treatment. How are you doing today? Great. And I'm sitting there thinking, come on, where's the interview? Where's the interview start? And I think he finally picked up on it and he goes, oh, you already have the job, by the way. I'm like, oh, okay. And he says, do you have any questions for me? I was like, well, what kind of clothes do I wear? I mean, I don't even know. He was so generous and so patient and so kind with me, even after I started working, because I hadn't worked in a setting like that in over 20 years. I mean, working at home is one thing, but in a setting where you have to be professional and talk to people and do things, all of this, it was a little bit nerve-wracking. And I remember after 6 months, I'd already been there for 6 months. And I said to the other lady who was working there, I said, well, if he decides to keep me on, I think I could do this for the office. And she just looked at me and said, what do you mean if he decides to keep you on? You're here. And I was like, really? You mean I have the job after 6 months? She's like, yes, you have the job. I was like, okay. All right, great. And then I just, settled in and made it mine at that point. It took 6 months for me to actually make it mine. I was still doing it the way that the other lady had done it. But after 6 months, settled in, made it mine, and loved the environment of working at the chiropractic office. Just loved that environment, the mind, body, spirit of it. It was just so wonderful working there, learning about how the body works, learning how it all works together. Our bodies heal themselves. We just have to make sure we're giving them what they need so that they can do that. And I loved all of it. It was about 2014 and the essential oil market started booming, right? doTERRA, Young Living, all of these things. And back in the early 90s, my mom had become an aromatherapist. But at that point, again, I was in my mom bubble. Don't try to give me things that don't make sense to me when I'm trying to raise my kids. I was so focused on raising my kids. But I remembered that she had been an aromatherapist. She had already passed away at this point, but I remembered, aromatherapy, what is this? And people just were trying to give me essential oils, right? To basically get me to sign up with Young Living or doTERRA. But I remembered my mom and I was like, wait a second, essential oils are not toys. I mean, these are concentrated plant matters that have chemicals in them that can harm you if you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, I wonder if there's training out there for this. I remembered my mom got training, but that was back in the day where they sent you a book in the mail. You did your work, you sent the book back, correspondence courses. So it was a long time ago. And I started searching online and I found the American College of Healthcare Sciences, and the way that they operated lined up with what I believed about the body and how the body works. And I went to school to become an aromatherapist. And it's funny because I definitely believe that everything happens exactly when it is supposed to. Throughout the years of our marriage, I had tried to go back to college. I had the GI Bill. I had planned to use it and get an education. And every time I tried to go to school, whether it was for American Sign Language to become an interpreter or psychology degree because I love the way the mind works or whatever, the door was shut. It wasn't slammed. It was just like, it's not time. It's not time. And when I filled out the application for the American College of Healthcare Sciences, pressed enter, and they came back and they accepted me into their program and I started going back to school. Oh my word, Catherine. Oh my word. Yes, I understood the internet. I did it. Working on the internet was fine. Online schooling, completely different than what I had attended back in the early 90s, because I had taken some college courses back in the 90s, really enjoyed it, had fun, but that was in school. Now we have this online learning space. Oh my goodness, the first class had me so stressed because I was like, I asked a question of the teacher and she's like, just look at the rubric. I hate to tell you, but it's been over 20 years since I've been in school. What is a rubric? And she was like, oh, I had no idea that we had people who'd never done this before. I was like, yeah, I don't know anything. Go into the chat and answer questions. How do you do that? Just the whole thing. But the people at ACHS were so gracious. They stepped back. They helped me figure it out. And I excelled. It was so great. And I loved learning about essential oils. And it was so much fun. And then I graduated. 2018, I graduated and I launched my business. I called it Aromatic Remedies. I still operate under that name. And what it was I meet with clients. We go through their health history, and then I will create bespoke blends for whatever they're dealing with, whatever's going on, whether it's a menopause issue or knee pain or whatever it is. Someone that I met with regarding knee pain, I was like, have you ever had an injury before, to your knee or your back? And she's like, well, no, I've never had an injury. I said, okay, you've been riding horses for over 50 years. You're telling me you've never been thrown, you've never been kicked. Oh, well, yeah, I was thrown when I was younger. Okay, so let's talk about how the body works. You were thrown. What happened? And she told me the whole story. I said, okay, so you injured your hip at that point. Yeah, I injured my hip, but we're here because of my knee. but everything is connected. And when your hip is out, your knee will hurt. We need to look at the structure of your body as well as giving you something for the pain. I can create something for the pain, but you need to go see your medical doctor, go see a chiropractor, go see someone about the structure of your body. So that's what I do with aromatherapy is I deal with the deep situations that people are in. And I loved digging down and uncovering. It wasn't about, here's an oil because you have pain. Why do you have pain? What is it that's giving you the pain? And I got super excited about the digging. And I had one lady come to me. She had lupus. She had the traditional butterfly rash across her face. And she was seeking an aromatherapy solution for that butterfly rash. Well, I'd done a lot of reading about the brain and the mind and the body and how it all works together. And during our consultation, I asked her, I said, well, can you tell me about your relationship with your mother? And she's like, oh, well, my dad was absent. My mother was stressed. I didn't really have a mother because she was so stressed. And when you read into lupus and the mind-body connection, it comes down to that relationship with the mother. And I just loved the digging. And I loved being able to help people where they were, but giving them tools to get them further. And so the idea of coaching it meshed. It was beautiful. It just meshed perfectly. And after we moved to Guam at the beginning of 2020, we moved like 5 days before the world shut down because of the Rona. And I was like, well, now would be a great time to get that coaching certification because I can't leave my house, can't do anything. So I started searching online, looking for life coaching because I love the body, I love the health and everything, but I feel like it's the life digging that I love. So I started searching for life coaching programs and I found the Health Coach Institute. HCI has their flagship program is Become a Health Coach. And but they have a life coaching tract in it. And then you can go on further and learn more after you've done the flagship course. So I was like, this lines up perfectly. So I did the health coaching certificate and it was great because it was like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I know that. Great, great, great. And I did the life coaching part and I was like, I'm hooked. And then I went back for their master program. So like master transformational coach. Now my business, the business that I'm currently fostering is called Lemon Balm Coaching. And the reason it's called Lemon Balm Coaching is because Melissa officinalis is the Latin binomial for lemon balm, the plant. And I thought, Melissa, lemon balm, it works. So it's kind of a nod to the aromatherapy beginning, but taking on the coaching part.
It's all connected. I love, you're so right. Everything is interconnected. And I love that you shared the ups and downs that you went on as you took this risk, as you reinvented yourself, as you went back to school, because I think that can be such a scary thing to do. One thing that came up for me too, as you were talking, was as a kid, I remember like people asking me like, what do you want to do when you grow up? So I felt like there's this one thing, you got to figure it out. And then you're that thing, you're a doctor, right? You're a lawyer, you're a ballerina, you're a librarian, but you are that thing. And so it felt like this huge decision to make. And then as I grew up myself, I realized like, oh, I have lots of different interests. And then after becoming a mom, I especially realized how important it was to do things that brought me joy, that to follow those passions, to reinvent myself in these different ways. And because it can be so easy to feel lost, because the role of motherhood is really beautiful, but it can kind of consume you. And yeah,
definitely it does. And that's why I call it the mom bubble, right? I was in this bubble where I honestly, for like 10 years, I don't even know what was popular. Like between 1992 to 2002, I can't tell you what music was popular. I don't know what movies were out. I can't tell you anything because I was in this bubble, like the bubble boy, right? I was just in this, nothing could get in. Nothing could get in. I was so focused. I don't know if that was good or right, but it was what I did. So, yeah. Yeah. And the whole idea of what do you want to be when you grow up? I feel like that is a holdover from the baby boomer generation. Because prior to that generation, that's like the last generation. My husband's in the boomer generation. We were just talking about this last night. Baby boomers, like they got a job and they stuck with that job until the day they retired, and they lived on their pension from that job until the day they died. Where Gen X and on, I feel like we're more like, I just want to be happy and do the things that make me feel good. I don't want it to be this, this is what I have to do, and I can only do this one thing. And like my husband's part of that baby boomer generation. And like he did 23 years in the military, and now he's done 24 years in his second job. And that's how he does it. But I taught my kids, I said, it doesn't matter what you do in life. So our youngest son, after he got married, he didn't enjoy living in Texas. My husband's Scandinavian descent, so our kids are very white, and they burn. They don't tan. They just get red. And our youngest son, started getting welts and heat rashes all over his body. Stress and the heat, all of it together was making him ill. So he and his wife did research, and they decided they were going to move to New York. And everybody kept asking him, oh, do you have a job? Do you have a job? Do you have a job? He says, no, I don't have a job. We're going to move to New York and then figure it out. And that's that's another thing I taught my kids. If there's something you want to do in this life and it requires an education, go get the education. Don't wait. Just go do it. And then enjoy the thing that you want. If there's a place you want to be, get to that place and figure out how to make it work, because you can't live where you're unhappy hoping to someday get where you want to be. Just get there. It'll all work out. So they loaded up their van and they drove to New York, found a place to live, and they've been living there for 3 years now, and they love it. And he's happy.
That's awesome.
But the whole idea of decide what you want to be before your brain is fully mature makes zero sense to me.
Yes. And we're evolving beings. Like you said, it's a winding path, and figuring that out as we go is a part of this adventure, I think.
So expecting our kids to know what they want to be before they leave home is a really unrealistic thing. Right. We need to give them that grace and that space to figure it out, whether that's going to college and figuring it out, or not going to college and figuring it out, joining the military and figuring it out, whatever it is. But giving them that space to be able to, grow.
I love that. Yeah, that's just when the journey's beginning, right? Yeah.
You're going to be working more. You're going to be working for longer than you were growing up. You might want to make sure you enjoy what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so I love your perspective. And if there's someone listening today that's wondering, like, how can I begin to reinvent myself? How can I start to take steps towards doing something that I really enjoy? What would you say to her?
The first thing I would say is just step back and take a breath. And I do this with my clients all the time. I tell them to physically stand up and step back and take a breath and look around. What is it that you enjoy doing? For the longest time, raising my kids, every year I would learn something new. I would say, okay, this year I'm going to learn how to bake bread from scratch. I'm just going to learn how to do it and do it well. Next year, I sat down and I learned how to crochet, and I'm going to learn how to do that really well. And then I'm going to learn how to quilt, and I learned how to do that. And I did it really, one thing after another. I just would learn how to do things. And for the longest time, I thought that what I liked doing was getting really good at something. Like, I'm going to quilt and it's going to be perfect. I'm not a perfectionist, but I like to do it well. But after working with a therapist and a coach, I realized what I really love is learning. It's not the being good at it. It's the learning is what I love. So being able to step back and take a breath and realize it's actually the learning part that fuels me. That's the part that feeds my soul. Like I have a stack of books. Those aren't for pleasure reading. Those are for learning reading. And I just love that learning. But taking that step back, taking a breath, and just, what is it? What is it that really gets me excited? And it might be raising your kids right now. And that's fine. That's fine. But some people are in a space where they have to go to work or they have to figure it out. Sometimes working with a coach can do that. They can help you hone in on what it is that you really, really want. Sometimes you might not need to go that far. Sometimes it might just be sitting down with your girlfriends and saying, I need to talk. I need to figure this out. Can you guys help me? But I think the biggest thing is tuning into who you are and figuring out what it is that you love. Because as moms, nowadays, I think we tend to outsource everything instead of trusting our own selves.
No, you're so right that learning to trust your intuition, you've got that wisdom within you, and we look to the outside so often to find that validation and see what we should be doing when we really do know within ourselves. I love that.
Yeah, and especially as moms, right? We know how to care for our children. Yet we go to YouTube, we go to the doctor, we go to our friends, we go to our parents, we go to, we outsource it because for some reason, we think that can't be right. But everybody's telling me I should do this, but I feel like I should do this for the benefit of my kids. We need to start trusting our own selves, our own intuition, like you said.
And I love that you said that what you really loved was learning, so we homeschool as well. And that's what I feel I'm trying to impart on my kids, is not having to know everything, by the time that they're ready for their first job, but the love of learning, to cultivate that within ourselves is really important. It makes it so much fun. It helps us to be curious, which they already are. Like, they have this natural curiosity about life, and that inspires me so much. But I love that approach.
What you just said reminded me of something before I went back to school. I was so nervous about going, just like I was nervous about getting the job, right? It was fear, right? Like fear of the unknown, really, more than anything. And I was talking with my youngest son. He was 17 at the time. And I said, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I should really do this. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Why would I be doing this right now? All the excuses in the world. And out of the mouths of babes, right? He looks at me and he goes, Mom, are you going to school to get a degree, or are you going to school to learn something? I thought you taught us that school was about learning, not to get a piece of paper. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Because that's what I taught my kids. It's about learning. It's not about getting the piece of paper that says, I have a degree. I can do this now because I have a piece of paper. I just thought that was really interesting, going back and hearing what I said out of my son's mouth. They do listen.
They do listen. Absolutely. I love that. So wise. And that was, so that kind of brings me to like the fixed mindset and growth mindset, that you can have. And so I would love to hear any thoughts you have around. So a lot of the times when we are wanting to take that next step and we want to do something, it's our own limiting beliefs, our own past experiences of what we've, been told that, oh, this is the way we do things. This is, we kind of judge ourselves and keep ourselves from taking that next step. When, like you were saying, it was just hearing that from your son helped you to step out of your current thought process and see it in a different way and take that brave step forward to reinvent yourself. Do you have any tips around that? If you are feeling that fear, if you are feeling that you're holding yourself back, what tips do you have around
taking that next step?
The thing that's coming up for me right now is support. I feel like support is very important, and support can come from so many different ways. It can come from your spouse. I mean, hopefully your spouse is supportive, and it can come, like my husband, he didn't push me, but he held up the belief that I could do it before I believed I could. That's what support means. Right? I believe, like my chair believes that it will hold me when I sit in it, right? That's what my husband did for me. That's what my son did for me. They believed I could before I believed I could. So support comes from so many different ways. More than likely, you've got girlfriends that support you. If they don't, you probably need new girlfriends. Support can come from a coach. I mean, that's kind of what coaches do. They believe in you before you even have the belief itself.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I would love to ask you, so you have been on this extraordinary journey. You have done so much, learned so much on your path. If you could go back in time and share some wisdom with your younger self, knowing all that you know now, what would you tell her?
Have you ever seen the movie The Kid? Great movie if you've never seen it. There's a line in it where he asks that exact same question of someone that was supporting him. And she said, "You mean go back in time and tell young Deirdre, who's bursting out of her Catholic girl uniform, what's coming?" And he said, "Yeah." She said, "Just hold on, baby. Because it's going to be a great ride." And it is. And life is a journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey getting there. Because it's a great ride. Have there been downs? Absolutely. But we can't enjoy the peaks if we don't experience the valleys. And when you need support, reach out and get some.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And can you let us know where we can find you online?
Oh, absolutely. Lemonbalmcoaching.com is my website. On Instagram, I'm at lemonbalmcoaching.
Awesome. Oh, I'll share that in the show notes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for joining me, Mama. I'm over here smiling from ear to ear and giving you a big virtual hug. I love spending this time with you. You are amazing for showing up and carving out this space to nourish your soul. If you are loving the Soul Care Mom podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you are ready to start your mornings feeling calm and energized, get the Kickstart Your Calm Morning Guide, a self-care morning ritual for moms, as a free gift when you join the Soul Care Mom community. Head over to soulcaremom.com/kickstart and enter your email address to get your free gift and start feeling like a calm mom today. Sending you so much love, Mama.